The year is 1945. World War II is nearing its end. In Europe, the Nazi regime has crumbled, but in the Pacific, the war machine of Imperial Japan continues. Allied forces inch closer to the Japanese home islands. The final confrontation is inevitable. This looming battle, known as Operation Downfall, would determine the fate of millions. Operation Downfall was a daring and complex plan to invade the Japanese home islands. It was to be the largest amphibious operation in history. The operation was divided into two phases, Operation Olympic and Operation Coronet. Casualty estimates pointed to a bloodbath of unimaginable proportions. Operation Olympic, the first phase of Operation Downfall, was a meticulously planned military campaign. It was scheduled for November 1945, a time when the world was still reeling from the devastation of World War II. The primary objective of this operation was the capture of Kyushu, the southernmost of Japan's main islands, which was seen as a critical step towards forcing Japan's surrender. The operation was to be a massive undertaking involving hundreds of thousands of troops and a vast armada of warships. This would be one of the largest amphibious assaults in history. The plan called for a multi-pronged assault on Kyushu's southern beaches, with troops landing at multiple points to overwhelm the Japanese defenses. The US 6th Army was chosen to spearhead the invasion, a force known for its resilience and combat effectiveness. Supporting the ground forces would be the combined might of the US Navy and elements of the British Pacific Fleet, providing crucial naval gunfire support and air cover. The Japanese had heavily fortified Kyushu, anticipating an invasion. They had prepared extensive defensive measures to repel the Allied forces. Networks of tunnels and bunkers honeycombed the island, manned by determined defenders ready to fight to the last man. The coastline was bristling with artillery, mortars and machine gun nests, creating a formidable barrier against any invading force. Despite the daunting obstacles, Allied planners remained confident in their ability to seize Kyushu. They believed that their superior numbers, firepower and planning would ultimately lead to victory. Operation Coronet, the second and decisive phase of Operation Downfall, was planned for March 1946. This operation was a critical part of the Allied strategy to bring an end to the Pacific War. Its target was the Kanto Plain, the sprawling coastal area surrounding Tokyo. This region was not only strategically important but also densely populated, making it a challenging objective. Coronet was to be even larger in scale than Olympic, involving over 1 million Allied troops. The sheer size of the operation required meticulous planning and coordination among the Allied forces. The operation aimed to deliver the final blow to the Japanese war machine. By targeting the heart of Japan, the Allies hoped to force a swift and unconditional surrender. The plan called for a massive amphibious landing on the beaches of Sagami Bay. This would be one of the largest amphibious assaults in history, involving thousands of landing crafts and support vessels. The US First Army would lead the assault. These seasoned troops had already seen extensive combat in Europe and were now tasked with spearheading the invasion of Japan. Their objective was to secure a beachhead and then push inland, capturing Tokyo. This would involve intense urban combat and overcoming heavily fortified positions. The operation would be supported by a massive air and naval bombardment. This bombardment was intended to soften Japanese defenses and provide cover for the advancing troops. The Kanto Plain was heavily populated and defended, with millions of potential combatants. The Japanese had fortified the region extensively, preparing for a last-ditch defense. The Japanese had mobilized their entire remaining strength, including regular army units, reservists, and civilian militias. This massive mobilization reflected their determination to defend their homeland at all costs. Facing the specter of invasion, the Japanese military command devised a desperate defense plan, Operation Ketsugo. Ketsugo was a last-ditch effort to repel the anticipated Allied invasion. It called for a layered defense, utilizing all available resources, including millions of civilian conscripts. The Japanese planned to fight a war of attrition, inflicting maximum casualties on the invaders. Central to Ketsugo was the concept of Ketsugo, or decisive battle. The Japanese planned to lure the Allied forces into a series of decisive battles. Civilians were told that the invaders were barbarians who would rape, pillage, and enslave the Japanese people. They were encouraged to fight to the death, using whatever weapons they could find. As Allied planners grappled with the complexities of Operation Downfall, they were haunted by a chilling question: what would be the cost in human lives? The enormity of the task before them was almost incomprehensible. Estimating casualties for such a massive operation was a daunting task. The planners had to consider numerous variables, from the strength of Japanese defenses to the resilience of their own troops. Initial estimates ranged from hundreds of thousands to over 1 million Allied casualties. These figures were not just numbers. They represented fathers, sons, and brothers. The Japanese, fighting on their home turf, were expected to fight with unparalleled ferocity. Their determination to defend their homeland was unwavering. The spectre of urban warfare loomed large. Cities would become battlegrounds, with every street and building a potential flashpoint. The potential human cost for the Japanese was even more difficult to comprehend. Civilians, caught in the crossfire, would suffer immensely. Millions of civilians were expected to perish. The devastation would be unprecedented, affecting generations to come. The very fabric of Japanese society was at stake. The cultural and social impact would be profound and long-lasting. These casualty estimates served as a stark reminder of the potential horrors of Operation Downfall. The sheer scale of the anticipated loss was a sobering reality. The decision to invade Japan was not one to be taken lightly. It weighed heavily on the minds of those tasked with making such a monumental choice. As the Allied noose tightened around Japan, the Imperial Japanese Navy unleashed a new weapon, the kamikaze. Kamikaze pilots were given a one-way mission to crash their explosives-laden aircraft into Allied ships. The kamikaze threat posed a significant challenge to Allied planners. These suicide attacks could inflict considerable damage. The psychological impact of the kamikazes was also significant. To counter the kamikaze threat, the Allies developed a multi-layered defense system. This included increased air patrols, radar pickets, and a dense screen of anti-aircraft guns on ships. Despite these efforts, the kamikazes remained a constant threat. The kamikaze attacks highlighted the fanatical determination of the Japanese defenders. As Allied forces prepared for the invasion of Japan, two events unfolded that would dramatically alter the course of the war: the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki and the Soviet invasion of Manchuria. On August 6, 1945, an American B-29 bomber dropped an atomic bomb on Hiroshima, killing tens of thousands of people. 3 days later, a second atomic bomb was dropped on Nagasaki. The atomic bombs sent shockwaves through Japan and the world. Simultaneously, the Soviet Union declared war on Japan and launched a massive invasion of Manchuria. The Soviet offensive shattered the remnants of Japan's Kwantung Army. The combined impact of the atomic bombings and the Soviet invasion was profound. The Japanese leadership was now confronted with the prospect of total annihilation. In the wake of the atomic bombings and the Soviet invasion of Manchuria, the Japanese leadership was thrown into turmoil. The emperor was now faced with an agonizing decision: continue the fight or accept the Allies' demands for unconditional surrender. The debate within the Japanese government was intense and divisive. The military hardliners argued for continued resistance. However, the atomic bombings and the Soviet onslaught had shattered their illusions of invincibility. The more moderate voices within the government argued for surrender. Ultimately, the emperor made the agonizing decision to surrender. In a radio address on August 15, 1945, Emperor Hirohito announced Japan's unconditional surrender. Operation Downfall, the Allied invasion of Japan, never came to pass. The atomic bombings and the Soviet invasion forced Japan's surrender. However, the legacy of Operation Downfall continues to resonate. Though never executed, Operation Downfall had a profound impact on military planning. The sheer scale of the operation served as valuable lessons for military strategists. The spectre of Operation Downfall served as a stark reminder of the human cost of war. The atomic bombings ushered in a new era of nuclear anxiety. Operation Downfall continues to haunt our collective memory, reminding us of the horrors that were averted and the enduring legacy of World War II.